Quagmire is a card that can single-handedly win a game of Twilight Struggle, as can its twin, Bear Trap. So how do you use this card to crush your opponent? Let's take a look at it today, here on Legendary Tactics. The Quagmire event card is a card which can have anything from minimal to absolutely devastating, momentum-changing, game-winning effect. But timing is everything, as this card can be played in suboptimal ways. Let's learn how to use it well. Quagmire is a mid-war Soviet event worth 3 operations points. If the event is triggered on the next action round, the US player must discard an operations card worth 2 or more and roll a 1-4 to cancel the event. This is repeated each US player action round until it is successful or until no appropriate cards remain in hand. If the US is out of appropriate cards, the US player may only play scoring cards until the next turn. Some people don't realize that this effect carries over to the following turn if it is not cancelled before then. If the US player rolls particularly badly, in theory, they could be mired in this effect for the rest of the game. And the wording on the card is a little bit vague, but discarding a card to meet the requirements of the event costs you the action for that turn. So, in other words, you can't discard a card, get a favorable roll, and then take your turn in the same action round. To be honest, this card can be so powerful at times that I wish there had been an upper limit placed on how many rounds a player can lose to it, or some other mitigating mechanic. As a nice bonus, it cancels the NORAD event if it is in effect. Please note that it does not prevent the NORAD event from being played later on. For the Soviets, the main use of this event is to take back momentum from the US player, or even to move into a controlling position in the game. Most times, this event is going to be cancelled after 2 or 3 rolls, but occasionally it can go on for an extended period of time. This gives you the opportunity to take unanswered actions round after round. This gives you the opportunity to lock down or shift a region. Flip a battleground country, or score a region after spending some operations points to break control. The possibilities really are endless. The downside is that it's a wasted round if the US escapes it right away, and it might even allow the US to dump an event that was giving them some trouble in managing their hand. But where this event can be absolutely crushing for the US player is when it is paired with Red Scare Purge. This is because Red Scare Purge reduces the ops values of the cards in the US player's hand, meaning that only 3 and 4 ops cards will qualify for the discard requirement. The best way to pull this off is to headline Red Scare Purge and then drop Quagmire on the US about halfway through the turn. Twilight Struggle is a game with a high sense of urgency throughout, and so people are generally tempted to play higher ops cards towards the beginning of their turn and hang on to lower ops cards for the end of the turn. Dropping Quagmire halfway through means that there's a chance that the US player does not have any high ops cards left and must essentially sit there fuming while you run the board, and those low ops cards will remain in hand for the following turn as well. If you're lucky enough to have salt negotiations, or if you're fortunate in the reshuffle, getting Red Scare Purge again ready to headline the following turn, that will likely mean game over and a glorious Soviet victory. Another option with the Quagmire card is to force the United States to skip a key action round. For example, you can play the event on your last action round to prevent the US from their usual action round 7 disruption and shenanigans. And a fun variation of this would be to time the event to play it on your last action round of the game, denying the US their last action round power play to try and gain victory. Another useful play using this card is if you headline Quagmire, it will give you a minimum of 2 action rounds in a row, as the US action round 1 will have to be used up in cancelling the event. For the Soviets, this is a great event and should be used most of the time. Sometimes you want to hold off though, especially if the US has played Containment, whose boost effectively mitigates this event, as even 1-ops cards would be available to discard to satisfy the event's condition. Or you may need the operations points, in which case 3 would likely come in very useful. As the US, the best move with this card is just to send it to space. I have seen instances where players drop Quagmire on themselves in order to rid themselves of a tricky Soviet event or two, but that comes at the cost of letting the USSR have multiple action rounds in a row, so use this tactic sparingly and only when desperate. And don't forget that playing it on yourself will cancel NORAD, which is an amazing and useful event for you. The one exception to this is if you end up stuck with Lone Gunman and Quagmire in hand. Then dropping Quagmire on yourself might be the only way to avoid DEFCON suicide by allowing you to legally hold Lone Gunman until the following turn. But these are desperate measures. If you get hit with this card, it might be a blessing in disguise, as you can get rid of a problematic Soviet event or two. I wouldn't wish for this, however. Getting stuck in the Quagmire for a longer period and watching a map slowly turn red is no fun. So for the Soviets, this is an event which you are generally going to want to take. Just make sure that you are playing it with a timing that makes the best sense with your hand and the overall board situation. For the US, space this card and hope it never returns. This has been our analysis of the Quagmire event in Twilight Struggle. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to us if you enjoyed it and got some value out of it, and we look forward to seeing you here next time on Legendary Tactics.